Good morning. It's Health Coach Lori, and I had a couple of thoughts I wanted to share today. Some of you know that I've been doing what I call a Be Food Sober experiment, and I'm starting day 183. And it's interesting how it all got started, and if you want to know more, you can message me, and I'm happy to share the story with you. But at the end of the day, as I've coached many people over the last 8 years, and specifically through our program, there is a component of emotional eating or addictive eating behaviors. And I started examining this earlier this year after coming off of my own sort of rough patch for the last couple of years, where some other things in our lives, with some caretaking responsibilities and things that, started creating quite a bit of stress. And I started really examining this. And I can remember many, many, many years ago as a very young woman, crying and trying to explain to my mother, who had said, why are you so fat? And I said, you don't get it. I don't have this shut-off valve. There's no shut-off mechanism. And I went through a whole series at that time of breaking free from compulsive overeating with Janine Roth and all of these other things. 8-9 years ago, I found an incredible program that we coach from that has a curriculum. But, I started re-examining this addictive part of the food saga early this year. And I thought, well, what there is an OA kind of thing in Overeaters Anonymous, which, it may work very well for some people, and a 12-step program is kind of similar to what I've been doing. But as I started thinking about overeating, what I realized was, well, if you said, okay, I'm not overeating today, how do you define that? And if that's a caloric level, and you say, okay, I'm breaking free from compulsive overeating, I'm not overeating, I'm not going beyond this number of calories, that's great. But you could still be getting all of those calories in with cake or chips or sodas or whatever, the stuff that's still so damaging to you. And I thought, well, that's not really workable. So sobriety became about literally sticking to a specific program for me, which the program we coach, I think, dovetails really well with it, but also just defining those things that were absolute triggers for me and just needing to stay away from them. So as I've been going along on this process and learning a lot along the way, a friend of mine actually brought up this app, and it's called I Deserve a Donut. Anyway, if you're Christian, it has a lot of scriptures, and there's attitudes that make you eat. So they really delve into the mindset as you're wanting to reach for something. Now, in our program, we talk about stop, challenge, and choose. So if you stop, you start to think about, okay, then you challenge, why do I want to eat this? What's going on? And sometimes, I've heard it referred to as halt. Are you hungry, angry, lonely, tired? I've heard it referred to as blast, bored, lonely, angry, sad, tired. I've added frustrated, overwhelmed, excess energy that you don't know what to do with, things of that nature. If you can stop, challenge what it is you're feeling, and then choose what you're going to do next, the rubber meets the road in the stop every time. And that's where the idea of sobriety, and not being sober, but handling sobriety, has been so key as I've progressed along in this experiment. And it's in the stop. Just stop and reshift from whatever it is, because temptation doesn't exist in an inanimate object. It exists only in our minds. And what's tempting to us may not be tempting to somebody else. So if that's true, then that thing is not tempting. It doesn't contain any power. It's an inanimate object. We project the temptation onto the thing. And that temptation arises when we have a certain mindset. So getting back to the I Deserve a Donut app, she talks about the different attitudes that can make you want to eat. If you're just careless eating, like it's just one bite, you ever said that to yourself? Denial eating. Well, I'm really not going past my boundaries. I really don't eat that much during the day. Unless you're logging everything you're eating and you're really looking at the calories of every single thing that goes in your mouth, it's easy to say, I really don't eat that much. AKA, I really don't drink that much. AKA, I only party on the weekends. AKA, I only, gamble once a week. Whatever the thing is, if you're in denial about it, if you aren't really paying attention and logging it, you may be in denial about how much you're eating, saying, well, I need this. Like, oh man, it has just been such a rough week. I really need this. I deserve to go out. Indulgences, justification eating. Well, there's a good reason to break my, she calls it boundaries. I call it sobriety. There's a reason to break my sobriety. If you were an alcoholic, would that justification hold water? Well, if you overeat because you're angry, tired, lonely, sad, frustrated, that's a drug of choice. You're using it for the same reasons. So why would it be okay to do that with food? We place a different kind of importance with food. And I know people say, I have to eat. It's different than alcohol or drugs or whatever. That's true. You do have to eat, but you need to nourish your body, not just fill your body. And it doesn't have to be with junk. Because normally when we're overeating, typically we're overeating on stuff that, isn't the best for us. Not always, but a lot of times. There's situations that make you eat. I'll never be skinny, so therefore I'm just going to be fat the rest of my life. The boredom that we talked about, the dieting's too hard, and, the just garbage disposal eating where you're eating everything that's not nailed down. And then there's all the different emotions that make you eat. So this app is sort of geared towards working you through that. There are scriptures from the Bible that go along with it. If you are not Christian, if you have another faith, if you're in a different, I believe in a higher power kind of thing, I think you can still use these principles and apply them and have them be effective. Maybe there's a scripture from your faith, something that speaks to that you can substitute here. My point is, it's a way to get you to stop. And that's, again, where the rubber meets the road. If you can hit the stop button, figure out what's going on in your head, find something that gives you strength in that moment. And maybe it's calling your coach. Maybe it's looking at this app, if that's an additional tool, and then choosing differently. So it's a matter of changing your focus from this to this. For me, with the sobriety experiment, I've been able to say and ask myself, am I sober or am I not? And that's really boiled this question down to a yes or no answer. It's kept it very simple, and it's a shift in focus then. If I'm not, then I'm going to be. If I am, great. Then I'm going to work to sobriety for the next meal, and however you define that for yourself. And for some people on our program, well, they're in varying, places. They could be in transition, they could be in maintenance, and so that food sobriety is going to look a little different for every person. And I would encourage you to talk to someone. You can reach out to me. I'm happy to help you kind of define that for yourself. Um, but it's a very clear, concise way to move your health forward. So just something that's been on my mind, and I've been sharing little bits here and there. It's day 183 for me today in this experiment. So I'm going to keep you posted as I go along. And I hope you have a great sober day.